Welcome to Safeguarding Conversations. In this series, we examine the daily realities of child protection and well-being, grounding our discussions in the latest statutory guidance and emerging research. Our goal is to support your ongoing professional reflection, because sharper practice leads directly to safer outcomes for children and young people. Which brings us to the core question of this episode. How does a school actually know when a child needs help? A modern school is a high-velocity environment. Between managing classrooms, monitoring corridors, and tracking attendance, an educator's attention is constantly divided across hundreds of interactions a day. In the middle of that noise, a child experiencing abuse or neglect is highly unlikely to step forward and clearly announce their distress. They are often held back by profound shame, direct threats, or simply a lack of understanding that what they are experiencing is actually harmful. Instead, their distress leaks out in fragments: a sudden drop in Thursday attendance, a slight deterioration in personal hygiene, a typically vocal student becoming withdrawn and silent during group work. Faced with these isolated incidents, the natural human reflex is to rationalize them. We write them off as normal teenage angst, or we decide a single missed homework assignment is simply too small to report to the safeguarding lead. This is where the concept of cumulative harm takes root. When we dismiss these minor, seemingly disconnected events, we allow the underlying abuse to continue. A persistent failure to meet a child's basic physical or emotional needs compounds over time, building into a severe crisis entirely under the radar. Within this complex ecosystem, the silent, steady accumulation of dismissed details presents a far greater danger than the sudden, obvious emergency. Statutory guidance is clear on this point. Working together to safeguard children explicitly states that no single practitioner can ever have a full picture of a child's needs and circumstances. In a typical day, observations are trapped in silos. A Period 1 teacher notes that a student is exhausted. A lunchtime supervisor notices them sitting alone. Later, the school's digital monitoring software flags a concerning search query. Those individual moments might not trigger an alarm on their own, but concerns that seem too small to report are often exactly the ones that need to be recorded. When a designated safeguarding lead pulls those pieces together, the fatigue, the isolation, the online activity, the noise fades. What remains in the data is a recognizable pattern of vulnerability. Erasing the boundaries between these professional silos is the only way a school can synthesize isolated fragments into an actionable story that protects a child. This synthesis is even more critical today, as safeguarding risks extend far beyond physical abuse or visible neglect at home. Today's most pressing threats are often entirely invisible. Extra-familial harms, like algorithmic grooming, exposure to radical ideologies, and the toxic influence of the Manosphere, operate out of sight. They don't leave bruises. They leave microscopic, highly specific digital footprints. Similarly, teenagers navigating coercive control or abusive intimate relationships will mask their reality. The indicators are buried in subtle behavioral shifts, a sudden change in peer groups, or an uncharacteristic drop in academic performance. To bridge hidden risks and outward behavior, staff must apply professional curiosity. This means refusing to take surface-level observations, like falling asleep in class, at face value, and instead investigating the context, reviewing attendance, consulting colleagues, and connecting online searches to real-world behavioral changes. In a landscape dominated by complex, contextual threats, accepting the easy answer is dangerous. Without professional curiosity, the most severe risks remain entirely unchallenged. Even with a curious staff, early intervention routinely fails for one reason: the assumption that a colleague will take the necessary action and report it. This hesitation is frequently compounded by anxiety over data protection. Staff worry about breaching the UK GDPR, so they hold on to critical information rather than passing it up the chain. The statutory guidance addresses this directly. Data protection legislation does not prevent the sharing of information for the purposes of keeping children safe. The laws exist to ensure data is handled appropriately, not to act as a barrier to child protection. A practitioner's fear of violating an administrative rule must never stand in the way of their duty to safeguard and promote a child's welfare. Overcoming these barriers requires moving a school from a passive, reactive reporting environment to a mature, proactive safeguarding culture. It requires every staff member to adopt the strict baseline attitude of, "It could happen here," applying that vigilance to every interaction, every day. Staff in this environment treat the act of logging a minor concern as the intentional authoring of a child's safety narrative. This collective commitment to recording details provides designated safeguarding leads with a complete, unobstructed view, allowing for the deployment of early help before a quiet struggle escalates into a crisis. Safeguarding rarely begins with a single dramatic event. It begins with the subtle details, a pattern of small changes, passing conversations, and unexplained absences. When adults take the time to notice, record, and share those details, those small pieces of information merge to become the story that ultimately protects the child. Thank you for watching. For further professional development materials and to explore future episodes in this series, please visit Wigan Training Limited.